Today our panoramic journey takes us down into Bass Strait, into the Furneaux Group of Islands of Tasmania. Flinders Island is the main one of these, and at the southern end of this island there is a magnificent national park with an amazing mountain range called the Strzelecki. Now, one of my favourite places along this stretch of coastline is named Trousers Point. There's a beautiful beach there, and when the sun sets and the subsequent glow comes from that setting sun on the pink granite tors, that light is often impressive. Capturing this light with foreground rocks, the way our eyes see it, is difficult, and we end up with an image like this, the one that I am showing you on the screen right now. In this tutorial, my aim is to show you my process for bringing out every bit of light that my eye saw when I shot that image, and then to end up with a photograph that matches my imagined scene at the time of shooting it. So here's the 6 images that I have in a folder. We take those into Camera Raw. We've got them along the bottom this time, and I click on Select All, back in, and then click on Merge to Panorama. We just wait for the magic to happen. Here we go. A lot of information to process there. I'm going to work between spherical and cylindrical, but I think the foreground's going to be too much. Yes, it is. So I've got a little trick for giving us more sky in a moment, but it's back to cylindrical where there's a nice balance of the foreground. I'll merge those now, save that file into the same folder where I have the raw files. So I've got that for next time I need it. When we bring it into Photoshop, the first thing I want to do is the whites, the highlights, and the shadows. You can see the blue parts of the image that's flashing really dark places, and we want to get rid of much of that as possible. Okay, once we've done that, we'll do a gradient up the top, just being careful with our temperature and our tint. Drop the exposure down a little bit as well as we're moving those sliders in and out. You can see we can drop the exposure quite well when we have the right tint. And then just as an added thing here, I'm going to bring up the aeroplane on the bottom 2 corners, both in the left and the right, just to darken those off a little to even up the balance of the tonal values. I also want to bring out the reds and the oranges, and to some extent the yellows and the greens. Once we've done that in saturation, then pop into Hue and see if we can just make those rocks pop a little bit. And the yellows and greens need to be biased towards the yellow, not lime, as in keeping with the Australian bush here. Again, just adjusting the warm tones of the raw file before we then decide to open it. And one little thing I'll do here too is look at the sharpening, particularly on the rocks in the foreground. And as I'm sharpening, a good idea is always look at the noise reduction and the color noise reduction to see if we need to do or tweak that a little more. Now, once we open up in Photoshop, the first thing I'm looking at is my levels. I've probably shown this setup to you all before. Sometimes I don't straighten the horizon in the Camera Raw. I wait until I'm in Photoshop itself, and then I use the warp tool to lower or raise certain parts of the panorama so that it looks right to my eyes. It's all about it looking balanced and looking right. And you can see here, just by straightening that and lowering the middle, we have that beautiful coastline and that beach looking very, very nice and straight. Okay, a little bit of cloning with the fill brush, content aware at 100% on the normal mode there, And once we've got that corrected, click OK, and it brings in a bit more sky for us. We don't want that bit of tree there. It's a bit of an eye magnet. Now, here's where I was mentioning to you a moment ago about increasing the skyline. So I have a clever trick. I go into canvas. I make sure that the arrows are pointing up. I get a white canvas. I adjust the height just by a few inches. That's important, but see how I've got that pointing up. So the canvas only does the top part. Then with my marching ants, I can select a section that I want to pull up. In Edit, Transform and Scale, holding down the Shift key as we do it, we can then bring the sky up. Now you need to be careful that you don't do too much of this. It's got to look right. But you can see straight away how balanced that is. And I'll just get that corrected. No, right there. We don't want any white in it. So we'll crop that. And when the resultant image comes back onto our screen, you can see that the sky is more balanced with the foreground. There's enough of both to make it look really good. Now with curves, here's the next little thing. Do you see how the granite, the pink granite tour is so bright? When we go into curves and we lower that down, you can see that we already have a copy there. So we can fill that with black in a moment. Get the area that you want brightened right, fill it with black, grab a brush tool in the normal mode, right up to close to 100%, and then very carefully bring back that overbright area and match up the scene. And you can do this in different sections, like I'm now going to do 50% over towards the left side in the ocean. That's enough. And you can see how we've even balanced the tone up a lot more than we had before. That's looking pretty good. Now the hue saturation. Again, I'm going to be very careful what colours I use, and at the moment I'm only interested in the aqua or the cyan, and we can check with our hue that we got it the right balance of cyan or aqua that we want. Once we're happy with that, we can flatten the image off, and we're now looking at warming the photograph some more. And by warming it, I need to also darken the skyline so that I've got the contrast looking just right. So foreground to transparent, darken at 90%, the right family of colour, so it's the blue black. Okay, now let's make a copy into the Nick collection to Vivisa now. And once we get that Nick software working, we don't need an update, we've already got it. Pull the structure up a little bit past what you need, because remember we've made a copy, and we can then brush it in. So once this has been progressed and filled, and here we go. Okay, fill it with black. Take the opacity almost up to 100%, and don't forget we can always lower the opacity later. With our brush tool in the normal mode, we just bring back that beautiful structure just in the background. Flatten that off. Spot healing brush tool for that little buoy out there that we don't need, and everything else is pretty right in the photograph. Now to finalize it, we're going to get some warm tones. I need to do that to the orange a little bit more. You can see I've got a nice orangey cream in there. Change our mode to vivid light. Bring the opacity right down to around 10 or 12%. Enlarge the photograph. Now very carefully where we feel that we need some brighter light. You can see what I'm doing here. That sand needs a little bit more brightness to it. The clouds in the background, and just finish touching up the beach in shadow. When we bring it back out and we're looking at the whole photograph, we now see that the rocks need some touching up. We're still in that lovely warm family of colour. It's biased towards an orange and it's very, very light. It's almost a cream. And you can see how the angle of the light on the rocks is making it look very, very nice. It's giving it much more punch. And that's what we want the scene. This is how we envisaged it when we were photographing it. Okay, I'm just going to redo the image to the size I want. I normally make my panoramas 42 inches and then either by 16 or 18. A small stroke round it, 2 pixels in the blue family of colour on white, nice cold white. In edit, stroke, there we go, nice clean white on the inside, bang. When we have a look at that with the black screen, you can see how beautiful that is, and it's also closer to my eye, how I saw that when I photographed it. However, I'm now going to show you another little trick. I've saved that image. I'm going to bring it back into Photoshop. I want to warm it up even more. So again, with the saved image, I'm just going to do a little bit more processing with Nik software. So I make a copy. I go into the Nik collection and I'm going into Color Effects Pro 4. In this program, there is an amazing software selection called Glamour Glow. Here it is here. We click on that and you can see now we've got how much glow we need, how much saturation we need, and how much warmth we need. Now remember, we've made a copy, so we're only selectively working some of the areas of this photograph to bring it up more near how I saw sunset. That's looking pretty good. It's probably too much in some areas, but that's not an issue. Click OK. When that comes back into Photoshop, we can make a mask once it's been saved. It takes a while to process. It's quite a lengthy process. And here it is now saving the image. Down there at the bottom left, you can see the progress. All right, let's make a mask. We fill that with black. That brings it back to how we had it. Once we'd saved it the first time, we go into the normal mode. We take our opacity up around the 70 to 80%, and just where we feel it's warm or needs to be warmer, we can then brush that back in. When you look over to the right side, you can see the white line appearing, and that's where we're actually brushing in the warmth. Now I'm going to do something else to this. I want it even warmer just in those areas. So we merge it down or flatten it. Then we go back into the hue saturation. We go to yellows and we just change the hue. See how that's becoming more normal? It's actually looking good, really good. It doesn't look fake. It looks pretty good. Then we get our brush tool. Again, watch our opacity, pop it through, and of course if it's too strong, we can go into our opacity on the right side here and lower it a little bit. I reckon that's not bad. So merge that again, and I've got one more thing to show you. Watch this. In the orange family, probably, yeah, you've got to be careful how strong you want it. I want it a little stronger than I had it the last time. Again, into vivid light, bring the opacity right down, around 12% again. You can see our other granite tores on the left side need a touch more. And as I'm looking through the image, I can either brighten, add a bit more in, until I get it just right. Yes, a little bit there, here. That's looking so good. You can do as little or as much as you want. That photograph is how I saw this just before sunset. You had that beautiful glow hitting the mountains and the granite tores. And if you think this is too much, you've still got your first copy. The first one you saved doesn't have as much glow. However, the second one you have has a little bit more. And there's two processes to be able to bring that beautiful light out to how you saw it when you first photographed this beautiful scene down there. Capturing a truly wonderful and light-filled panorama with your camera is only the first step in taking a gorgeous photo. You need to finish it, of course, in your software. As I've shown you here, it's what we do in our process of those images that makes or breaks the final outcome. This is Ian Rolfe, and I thank you for watching.